Commutifi presents Between the Lines with Andy Keaton. Each week, we explore the challenging issues transportation demand management professionals face on their journey to transition commuters from driving alone to more sustainable, shared, and active commuting habits. Be sure to subscribe to hear next week's episode and check out our exclusive commuter playlists on Spotify. This is Between the Lines with Andy Keaton.
Hello, and thanks for joining us today. Thanks for being on board. Today, we're talking with a really special guest, Jessica Alba. She's a transportation policy manager at Stanford University, and she's the chair of the ACT Certification Board of Trustees overseeing the TDM-CP program. That's what we're talking about today. Jessica joined Stanford University as an internal and external liaison on transportation policy matters in 2017. Prior to Stanford, she was a planner and principal at Nygaard Consulting Associates and Trivector Traffic, two thought leaders on transportation solutions that put people first. Jessica studied earth and environmental sciences at Lund University in Sweden in the 90s and moved to the San Francisco Bay Area in 2004. With a strong foundation centered on sustainability, she merged her academic knowledge with a love for vibrant communities. Over the past 2 decades, she has consulted and advised on hundreds of projects and policy efforts in the sustainable and emerging mobility realm. We're really excited to have you on today, Jessica. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
All right, today we're going to be talking about something that's really near and dear to my heart, the TDM-CP program. And Jessica is going to tell us why the TDM-CP program is going to save the planet. And I really find this to be fascinating. It's a really important new program here in the field of TDM for a lot of reasons, but to me, it has really brought me into the TDM space, become a better professional here in the space, and I feel like I've really gained a lot of information and knowledge from this. So let's just dive right in. We were talking before we got on to this recording about some of the different reasons why the TDM-CP program is so valuable. So I want to kind of start off with just broadly, the TDM-CP program, it recognizes, it provides kind of this incentive for professionals in the TDM field to actually kind of continue to improve their knowledge, to understand more about the space and the policies and everything that's kind of the intricate, pieces to the TDM space. So you said a quote. I'm just going to look, I want to make sure I get the quote right. Okay, so you said TDM is to some extent the glue that holds many transportation services and programs together. I think this is great. So let's start off broadly. Why is TDM so important? And then we'll kind of dive more into the TDM-CP program. Let's start there. Yeah. Why is TDM so important?
Yeah, it's funny. I've been in the space for 20 years now, and it's, to many people, it's hard to explain what TDM is. It's not clear right away what it stands for and what's included in it. And I love all of the things that ACT is doing now in regards to solidifying and codifying the concept of TDM at the federal level through a legislative proposal, the more through TDM Act, for instance. But what I'm realizing is that TDM is like the glue in that we have these infrastructure projects and we have the infrastructure around us, right? Roads, transit system, rail systems, our bike and pedestrian facilities, freight, we can go on, right?
Yeah.
And all of these could function separately, but sure, probably not well. And when it comes to ride sharing and getting someone to take that step of getting out of the car and getting onto transit, or taking transit to work, for instance, or starting to ride a bike, TDM is really that glue that makes it happen. It's the outreach, it's the marketing, it's the incentives, it's the disincentives, parking fees that help people make smarter choices and provide better options. So I'm really starting to feel like, yeah, maybe it is the glue. Of course, the outreach in itself is part of the glue, but the programs and all of the things that we're talking about is yeah, it's the glue, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, and this is one of the reasons I really like, I'm very excited that we're talking with you here early on in the Between the Lines podcast, because there's so much that goes into TDM, all these different things. And yeah, TDM is the glue, but that's great. Now, how do we incentivize people? How do we get people to be thinking about TDM? And how also do we get people to be proud of being, in the TDM field? So let's dive into this topic that we're talking about today. So the TDM-CP program, Transportation Demand Management Certified Professionals Program. I think I got that right. It's a nice long acronym. We love acronyms here in the TDM field. Can you talk to me a little bit more about how, what is the structure behind this? How does someone become a TDM, certified professional? And why is it important that you kind of set it up the way you've set it up?
Yeah. So one of the things, I think the TDM field is expanding and we're becoming more full-time TDM professionals. In the past, we might have been a planner or an engineer or an marketing manager, but now we're realizing that we need to be a TDM professional from first thing in the morning to the end of the day, right? And that's very exciting. And when that happens, and when the industry is gelling the way it is now, and we're having new tech coming in, we have a strong movement, even at the federal level and national level, where more and more people in adjacent professions are saying, wait a minute, we can't build our way out of congestion anymore. That's where the TDM comes in, right? We need to really make our transportation systems much more efficient, and we need to take advantage of what we have rather than expand. And of course, transit needs to be expanded. Bike and pedestrian facilities need to be expanded. Other first and last mile options need to be expanded. So we're coming to the point where the TDM profession it's real. It's been there for how many decades, but now we have so many people that it makes sense to set up a certification program. Yeah. So if you have a couple of years or a number of years in the industry, and you feel like this is what I'm passionate about, this is where I belong when I have these conversations about TDM and everything that it is, that's when I think it makes sense to consider becoming a certified professional. And those steps then go into, you start off by checking out ACT's web portal with all the documentation and the handbook and the long list of existing certified professionals from the past year. And then there's, of course, studying to understand the different domains, the topic domains. And then you register and you actually end up taking the exam. And then once you're done with the exam, then there's a recertification process. So every 2 years after you are certified or recertified, there's a new cycle that comes on. And the way we've set up the program is really to encourage you to both grow as an individual, and then also to become a stronger leader, and to advance the concepts of TDM in everything that you do.
Yeah, that's good. There's so much there that you talked about and unpacked. Yeah, I mean, so I went through this program as well, and I think I really like what you said there about, if this is really what you feel like this is your passion, this is where you belong, you feel excited to be talking about it. I always find myself, I'll be talking with someone about this and I'm just like, yeah, I'm a big nerd about this. I think it's, this is the field. This is just like, it's just really interesting to be talking about it, which is so funny because I hear people talking about the things they care a lot about, and I'm like, that seems boring. But this is so exciting to me. So I'm excited that I can go out and get this certification. I think that's great. And I know that a lot of our listeners here, this is probably where you are too. You know, you wouldn't be listening to this if you weren't a nerd about TDM. So this is great. One of the things that is interesting to me is this idea of kind of enhancing individual, professional development and kind of learning the TDM field even better, just kind of mastering, your craft. And you talked about how there's so many different things that go into TDM, and it's all interwoven. I'd like to I know that before the TDM-CP program was put in place, before the certification was put in place, there was a jobs analysis that was done. I'd like to hear a little bit more. What is that, first of all? Explain that. And then why did that come to this? Why did that tell us, oh, let's do this certification?
So back in 2017, and years prior to that, but back in 2017, there was a formal jobs analysis done. And it's a big effort to really figure out and hone in on what is this profession? What does it entail being a TDM professional? What are the topics that you need to cover and master in this profession? So any accredited certification program goes through this, and these jobs analyses are done roughly every 5 years in order to keep the program relevant and up to date, right? So you can capture new focus areas or remove something that no longer applies, or something that has changed tremendously between, say, 2017 and 2022 or 2023. Right. Mm-hmm. So as part of that jobs analysis, the biggest portion was, or the biggest part of the study was a survey of TDM professions, where it was discovered the different components and what you need to know and what functions you fill. Did I mention? So 500 individuals were surveyed in that effort. So it's a big enough sample to get really a lot of value out of that survey. And so that base is the foundation for the questions, the exam questions, really, and the domains and the subdomains that are created. And the 4 main domains.
Let's dive into those a bit. I bet our listeners are pretty interested in this particular thing you're about to say.
Yeah. So you of course, as a TDM profession, you need to know the foundations of TDM. How do funds and policy trickle down from the federal level all the way down to the regional and local level? What can you do with funds? How does TDM fit into the planning, the urban planning versus rural planning versus the tech sphere? How does it fit in with transit and parking management? And then also, so really understanding the foundations and what TDM is and is not. And then you have the program planning. When you set up a new TDM program, that's one component. The program management, how you manage it and how you manage staff and being a good, effective leader and manager and supervisor and communicator, all of those aspects. And then you have the how to measure the outcomes of the program and the success of the program. Where should we invest funds? Where should we not invest funds? What didn't make sense for our program? And where do we see change? What are ways to improve our program? And how do we report back either to the state or the region or the district or other stakeholders that you need to respond to? So those are the 4 key areas of the exam. And then in those, it's broken down into very, very, very detailed levels. That's all included in the handbook. So quite straightforward.
Yeah. No, and this one, I mean, the TDM-CP exam, it's I feel like it's unique in that this is such a weird, broad, nascent kind of profession. Certainly, if people might be familiar with some of the other exams that you might get out there that are pretty, it might be straightforward. I need to understand, how wide a street needs to be or something like that. But this gets into, sure, I mean, maybe there's something like that you do need to know as a TDM certified professional, but you also need to know, how do I apply for a grant, or how do I, report how well my program has gone, or how do I account for the money I'm spending? I mean, this is so broad. I remember when I was studying, I was going, man, I'm essentially studying for 3 or 4 different exams at the same time. Obviously, all of them kind of this, so if you go to an accounting exam, you're going super deep in accounting. This you need to go just enough in all of these different spaces.
Exactly.
Really exciting.
Yeah, and if you look at the resource list that is included in the handbook, the accounting handbook, or like the guide, which is hundreds and hundreds of pages, is included there. And it's not that we expect anyone to read through it. It's just there to say you need to understand how accounting works, how management of staff works, how to deal with if you're in the field and someone is not showing up, what do you do? So it's a lot of aspects. And I have to say, as a consultant, I, over many years, the vast majority of my career is in consulting. I didn't need to know the details, right? But of implementation, since I was more focused on policy. But at the same time, I need to understand that if I'm in the TDM profession, in order to guide clients properly and getting involved in those aspects of programs. So I think everything that is in the exam is incredibly relevant to what we do. And we also need to recognize that there needs to be opportunity for new kinds of questions to be incorporated when technology is evolving and new funds become available. And so that's what we're doing as well. We're going to maintain and update each exam form as we move along year by year, in order to make it relevant.
I mean, I remember, because I think you were going through those 4 domains. The last domain about measuring success, that's something I do all the time. So that felt very straightforward. I didn't study very much. I felt very comfortable there. Then there was, in domain 1, something like, you need to understand CMAC and funding going through there. And I don't work. I mean, I certainly work with public agencies, but I don't do it on the ground.
No.
Super helpful. I think I've used this information. The next day I jumped on a call and they said some acronym, and I was like, wait, I actually know what you're talking about this time. And I can actually give my own input and understanding into the conversation. So it's super helpful. I mean, I can sing the praises myself just from going through it. I think it's really good.
I think you're onto something as well. That I took the exam back in the beta exam group in February of 2020, before the pandemic, and I learned so much about what I didn't know and what I needed to really study up on. And like you said, I've never, even if I work in policy, I never really had to learn about the House committees that are more responsible for distributing funds related to infrastructure and rail versus urban transit versus this. The exam really highlighted to me what I was lacking and what I can continue growing in. And so that's been a plus to me that I didn't even expect.
I think it's very beneficial to me as a TDM professional. So we only have a few minutes left, but I do want to touch on an important aspect of this program, which is the recertification program. And I think that being a really critical benefit to this program is just continuing that education in TDM. You talked about how things change, how the exam changes. but there's another piece in its recertification. You just quickly talk about what that looks like and why it's important.
Yeah. So back to the handbook, it lists all of the opportunities you have to maintain your certification. So the recertification process is divided up in two categories, and one is an industry leadership category. So really advancing and growing both as an individual, but also reaching out and getting more people involved in TDM. And the other one is your professional development category. Your certification is valid for 2 years. And during those 2 years, we expect you to accrue a certain number of points, or actually credits, right? So we call them credits in each of these two categories. And there's a long list of actions you can take: participating in webinars, facilitating chapter meetings, or being part of a chapter or council leadership, and other opportunities, going to the conference, the annual conference, or one of the fall or spring opportunities when we actually get to hang out together in person in the future.
I'm excited for that.
Or doing the virtual events as well. So just as an example, serving on an ACT chapter board for a full 2-year period is equivalent to meeting the criteria for the leadership category. But the handbook has a long list, and I need to just say this, since the program is new, we will be reviewing this and assessing this over the coming 2-year period to see if there are categories or opportunities for credits that need to be added, or subcategories that need to be removed because they don't serve us, right? Or they don't serve the individual, the candidate. So that's something we're working on right now.
Yeah, and this is two things there that I really, once again, I keep saying that I really like about this program. But two more things. One being that just being involved in the community and going to things, continuing to learn, which you should already be doing, and I want to be doing. That gets me my recertification. I don't have to go back and take the exam again, which taking the exam is super beneficial, but it takes some time to study and do all that. You don't have to do that again. I really like that. And you also touched on the fact that it's new. And I mean, I work for a startup. I love being in the new, this new kind of edge, on the bleeding edge. But this is the case here too. You want to get in early when it's I feel like I'm really proud of I'm one of this handful. I can see on the website how many people are have the TDM-CP badge, and I'm one of them. It makes me feel really proud of what I've done. But also, we can actually have a say, in the direction this takes moving forward. This isn't some, established exam that you just have to follow a prescriptive path.
You're so right, Andy. I love that you're bringing that up, because if you're a TDM-CP, you can also become a part of the Certification Board of Trustees. There's an annual election to become a member of the Certification Board of Trustees, so that you can continue giving back, and that gives you credits towards your recertification.
Everything gives you credits. I love it.
And you can also be part of subcommittees to expand either the exam questions or the prep materials, or other components like marketing. You can, if you're a TDM-CP today and you're interested in marketing and outreach, let us know, because we need support on our marketing subcommittee. No, this
is really exciting. We've talked about a bit the program. I think that we've given a good understanding. Our listeners who haven't taken it yet, who haven't gone through this process, should have a good idea. We'll include the links that you talked about, Jessica, to the ACT website and to the handbook as well. Yeah, thank you. The handbook, we'll include those links on our website so people can find that. But let's just kind of finish this off. Let's tie a nice bow on this. In a couple sentences here, why do you think the TDM-CP program is going to help save the world, save the planet?
Yeah. Like I started off in the beginning, we can't build our way out of congestion. We've tried that for decades. We need to manage demand, and we need to utilize our existing infrastructure much, much better. Again, like I said in the beginning as well, we can always invest in transit, walk and bike, and other infrastructure as well, but not necessarily sitting stuck in traffic in your own car. So I do think the TDM profession is on the way up. I think we will see a lot more people transition into this field and feel the need to become certified professionals, as this is more recognized and included as a criteria in bidding processes, etc. And then, yeah, I think I want to stop there. I do. It's more the solidification of the profession that is happening right now. It's just a really, really strong sign that so much of the technology advancements that are happening as well, they're so related to making more efficient use of our existing infrastructure. So TDM is not going away. TDM-CP is just going to get stronger thanks to all of the members who are investing their time and making the program stronger and stronger.
I like it. Yeah. So yeah, if you haven't gone through the process yet, I think there's a new exam period coming up this summer that you can do that. Perfect. Jessica's nodding her head for those listening.
Yeah, and Andy, I want to also give a shout out to the grassroots initiative with the support group, a TDM-CP support group that exists within ACT, there where you have study buddies. And you get the privilege of watching really fantastic colleagues in the business who are doing webinars on specific topics like CMAC funding and parking management and how TDM fit into both. And that's just a couple of examples, but lots and lots of resources. So Andy, I'll send you the link to more information about that one as well.
You don't even need to. I'm a part of that myself. Wouldn't have gotten through it. Wouldn't have gotten through it if it wasn't that. So I definitely think anyone who's doing the exam should join that support group. Okay, so that's all the time we have to talk about the TDM-CP program. Before you go, as you know, and as our listeners know, we've got these music playlists up on Spotify to just kind of enhance your commutes as you're coming back to work. You can only listen to this podcast so many times. So we love to have our guests kind of give their own input and put their own songs into it. So Jessica, why don't you tell us, what is it that you're listening to? What do you want to add to the playlist?
Yeah, this is a really tricky one. What do you select, right? But as I was thinking about this, I realized how much I love 07. It's I think a British duo. They've been around for a long, long time. They're the melody and everything. The sound is just awesome. So I have to say Destiny.
Great, love it.
Not necessarily listen. Well, I'm starting to listen to the lyrics. I'm more a melody person, but what I love about Destiny and 07 is their collaboration with Sia and other artists, and always producing this mellow, travel-friendly sound.
So nice.
And back to the melody, just beautiful. They touch you. And Destiny is all about that fleeting moment on your business trip, on your commute, in the park holding hands, on the bike. on the subway, and it's just a beautiful song. So it just seemed even more fitting once I actually did watch the video that goes along with the song.
Yeah.
Because it turns out to actually be a song about movement and love and passion. And I thought it was very, very fitting.
That's a great song. We're glad to add that to the playlist for sure. All right, well, Jessica, thank you so much for your time. And I'm excited to see the new list of TDM certified professionals coming up next summer. And I hope some of our listeners and viewers will be on that list.
Yes.
Once again, thank you.
Thanks for joining us on this week's episode of Between the Lines with Andy Keaton. Be sure to subscribe to hear next week's episode and check out our exclusive commuter playlists on Spotify.